If you've been anywhere near your phone this week, you've already met them. You've seen the engagement video, the candlelit cake, the sunflower he handed her with her eyes closed, the countdown to her birthday, the two of them dancing, the perfect couple for an imperfect algorithm. A boy from a big Pune business family, a girl about to marry into it, a wedding being built for this November on a scale that didn't quite sound real, a palace, private planes, 17 crore rupees. By every frame on every feed, this was the love story, the one your aunt forwards to the family group with 3 heart emojis. And then, one morning on a hill above Lonavala, the boy in those videos went over the edge of a fort and fell hundreds of feet into the gorge below. But something about this simple tale with a tragic end wasn't sitting right with the people who knew this couple. When the police looked deeper, what came loose underneath the flowers and the captions and the 17 crore wedding was something none of those millions of scrolling thumbs had even thought to imagine. This is the story of a perfect couple, a beautiful hill, and everything that was hiding under the highlight reel. This is the story of Ketan Agarwal. Hi everyone, welcome to the Desi Crime Podcast, a show where we dive deep into some of the craziest cases from around South Asia. I'm your host Aishwarya.
And I'm Aryaan.
And the case that I have for you today is one that has been on our Instagram feeds for the last few days. It's all that there is.
Ash, we quite conveniently preface each episode with we're bringing you the craziest stories from around South Asia.
Mm-hmm.
This time, I think we are truly bringing one of the craziest stories I've come across, not just because of the nature of the crime, but because of how my phone is blowing up. I've realized the perils of being the host of Desi Crime. As much as, I'm grateful for it, one of the perils is that long lost relatives and friends will reach out to you when a case like this happens. I'm being DM'd left and right to cover this. I've been seeing so many carousel posts about it. Whenever this happens, my instant reaction is not to read the story, but to beg you to cover it. And I'm so glad you have done an emergency pod like this one to tell me the story, because honest to God, apart from there being a cliff and somebody falling from a cliff, I know nothing about this case.
Yeah, and the pictures of the wedding. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing, is that the footage we're seeing is of two people deeply in love. There are so many people who are texting and DMing, and I think the thing that sticks out about this case is, there is so much footage online, so much romantic, cutesy footage that we're so used to seeing on social media. So much of that exists in this case. And so to hold that against the crime, people are just jarred. People can't believe what they're seeing versus what they're reading. And added to that, I think there's just been an increase of cases of this kind, where it seems like the perfect love story, and then there is a female criminal. And I think people have stuck to that narrative. People want to discuss why that's happening. They want to understand what's going wrong. And so I think for all of those reasons, this is all we've been hearing about, and I want to get into it. If you've spent any time around Pune, you already know Lohagad. It's about an hour and a half out of the city, up near Lonavala. An old fort sitting on top of a black rock with the kind of climb half of Pune has done or wants to do at some point. People go up for the view, and the view earns it. But what the photos leave out is what's on either side of you when you're on the top, where the path thins and the ground falls hard on both sides. A drop that does not forgive a wrong step. On the morning of the 18th of June 2026, a young couple from Pune made that exact climb. They were, by every account anyone could give at the time, exactly the kind of people you would expect to see up there. Young, well-off, healthy, in love, the boy an experienced trekker who knew this terrain, the girl about to turn 21. It was almost her birthday. That, everyone agreed, was the reason for their outing. But instead of a call from one of them to their families describing the beautiful trek they just finished, at around 10:30 that morning, a call went out to the police. The young woman, Siya Goyal, told them that her fiancé had been taking photographs near the edge when the wind caught him, and that he had slipped and that he had fallen into the gorge below.
This bit, when I saw on my For You page, Aishwarya, this claim of somebody slipping, it felt BS from the get-go. And for no forensic reasons, from purely the lived experience of anybody who's in Maharashtra right now, the one talking point in the sort of Mumbai echo chamber has been, forget early monsoon showers. There has been no monsoon in Mumbai. It is July is about to start. There has been no monsoon. So for you to go on a trek, that is, again, when we say trek, this is not Himalaya trek. These are very low-lying hills. These are very normal mountains. This is not an egregious trek. So it's a normal trek that can be complicated if there are showers and if the surface is wet. It has been dry. Maharashtra has been dry. Everybody's joking about that. So for somebody to, at the worst time in the history of monsoons, to make claims about slipping, it's just the timing couldn't be worse.
And something about the wind line also just like kind of catches me off guard. It's like when you're a really skinny kid in school.
Just like her allegation that the wind caught him off guard.
Yep, exactly like that. This whole allegation that there were strong winds. This is a fully grown adult man and the altitude isn't that high where the winds are that strong. Sometimes you're at high elevation and you're like, holy crap, that's insane winds. But this is none of that. Like you said, this is just none of what fits the description of an accident during a trek on the hills. Now, regardless of what we think of the terrain, someone had fallen and Siya Goyal had made that call to the police. Her screams the moment her partner fell were loud enough that a guard from the fort premises rushed towards her, and he became the first person Siya told a version of events to. That someone had fallen. Not many details, not much context, just her distraught, claiming someone had fallen. A rescue operation began almost immediately on a hillside that does not make rescue easy. It took, by police accounts, roughly 3 hours to bring the body up from where it had fallen, far, far below the path on top. The now dead man was Ketan Agarwal, 26 years old, gone forever. What was not in dispute that morning was the shape of this accident. A young man on a beautiful, dangerous hill, a gust of wind, a photograph that cost him everything, a grieving fiancée making the worst phone call of her life. And to be fair, regardless of what we think, that story isn't far-fetched. A fall on Lohagad is not an unheard of tragedy. It's a recurring one. Every monsoon, the forts take someone. A slip on a wet rock, a selfie a step too far back, a high wind at the wrong time. So when a young woman stands at the top of a notorious hill and says the winds took him while he was framing a photograph, she's not asking anyone to believe something strange. She's handing them the most ordinary explanation the mountains offer, even if there wasn't any rain. The rescue team that spent 3 hours bringing Ketan up was not working a crime scene. They were recovering an accident. Everyone was. The police logged it as an accidental death. And for about 5 days, that is exactly the story this was going to be. A boy who loved mountains, taken by one. A tragedy, and nothing more sinister than that. But it was not nothing more than that. Now, to understand why this fall would not stay an accident, you have to understand who fell. So let me take you back from that hillside and introduce you to Ketan properly, the way the people who loved him would have wanted him introduced, not as a body recovered from a gorge, but as a young man with a full and vibrant life in front of him. Ketan Agarwal was from the Pune side of the Pimpri-Chinchwad belt. His family is, by the reporting, a prominent one. His father, Vishal Agarwal, a well-known construction and real estate businessman, the family enterprise described in coverage as the Success Group. This was old money in the local sense, the kind of family whose name opens doors in the city. And Ketan had been built, carefully, to inherit and expand it. He had a bachelor's in supply chain management and a master's in entrepreneurial leadership from Symbiosis in Pune, and then a postgrad stint abroad at Babson College in the US, a school that's more or less synonymous with entrepreneurship. He then returned home to assume the role of a director and the chief marketing officer of that family firm, the Success Group. You do not assemble a CV like that by accident. Ketan and his family had planned this life for him in the way business families do, to keep empires running over generations. And then, earlier this year, they also planned his wedding. In February of 2026, Ketan got engaged to Siya Goyal. Siya was 20 from the market yard area of Pune, herself from a business family. The two clans were not strangers brought together by a random matchmaker's spreadsheet. According to Ketan's own father, the Agarwals and the Goyals had known each other for more than 35 years. This was a match between families who had watched each other's children grow up. And what they planned for these two was as much a wedding as it was a production. The big, fat Indian wedding. The ceremony was set for November in Udaipur. And with that fact alone, you understand the register we're operating in. Udaipur is where you marry when a banquet hall will just not do. Police have said the families had booked a palace in Jaipur as well, for a figure that when I first read it, I assumed was a typo or one of those Chinese whisper details that make it to the media without basis in reality. 17 crore rupees for the venue, along with 2 private aircrafts to fly the guests in. But this figure came from early public reporting. We now have direct contradictory information from Siya's own mother, Pooja Goyal, who told reporters the Udaipur venue was booked for around 3 crore rupees, with the whole wedding expected to cost in the region of 5 crores.
3, 5, 17 crores, you can, anything.
When you don't have it, it's all the same.
Anything suffixed with a crore to me is the same, right? But I have personally, and my own qualms with the big fat Indian wedding and how I anyway want a small wedding. But 17 CR is just A, abnormal, okay? And B, I just want to say that if private aircrafts are involved, I think her mother's claim of just a 3 or 4 CR wedding aren't true. These might be claims she's making now, to show some kind of austerity given
but we don't know if private
tragedy has
aircrafts are
happened.
actually involved or not.
Okay, cool. If that's the case, then I understand. Then it could just be media Chinese whispers. But I just want to be mindful that obviously, if your son or your son-in-law have died, you want austerity about the wedding. Otherwise, the same stuff that you were doing, posting everything about the wedding, showing off your wealth, all of that comes to bite you in the back later on when a tragedy like this happens.
Yeah. But regardless, even at 5 crores, this was clearly going to be a wedding built like a small festival. And from the outside, which in 2026 means from the grid of an Instagram profile, it all looked like a fairy tale. Siya posted pictures of the engagement in February. In March, she put up a photo of a candlelit cake and tagged Ketan with a caption about it being 1 month since her heart found its home. In May, there was a video of Ketan handing her a sunflower, covering her eyes first, and a caption joking that he had taken a casual "Pasand hai tumhe" very seriously. There were clips of them dancing, counting down her birthday. 2 happy young people, an avalanche of flowers and a pretty cake and soft lighting, the exact visuals of a couple the world envies. And at the center of all of these arrangements and all of this romance were these 2 people, a boy of 26 and a girl of 21. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know what was in her or Ketan's head, and I want to be careful not to. She's a person accused, not a diagnosis, and he's a loved son and a victim, not a tale. Everything we have about their interior life comes from second-hand information through police, family interviews, and the feed that they curated. But the outline of the situation, according to the police, is plain enough. 2 young adults at the center of an enormous, expensive, family-built event performing a romance for the grid, while one of them was privately living a completely different life with a completely different person. Now hold that image in your head. All that cutesy stuff I just told you, hold it. Because every single piece of that surface is about to come apart. And the first person to refuse to believe the surface was the one man who had the most reason to want it true. It was Vishal Agarwal, Ketan's father, who would not accept that his son slipped. Now, grief makes people say a lot of things, and a father insisting his dead child could not have died the ordinary way is, on its face, one of the most human and least reliable instincts there is. We want there to be a reason. But Vishal's objection was not only grief, it was specific. Ketan was a seasoned trekker, someone who knew how to handle himself on bad ground. The idea that he of all people would back off an edge for a photograph and simply go over, that did not sit right with the man who had watched his son climb hills his whole life. So Vishal pushed. He told the police he suspected foul play and demanded a formal complaint. Here I also want to be honest with you about the shape of what we know, because the case is barely a week old as I write this. Almost everything I'm going to tell you about how the police cracked it comes from the police themselves, from briefings and a press conference re-uploaded across a dozen outlets that are all, in the end, drinking from the same well. There is no trial transcript yet, there are no cross-examined witnesses, there is a police account, a grieving family's account, and not much else. So when I say the investigators found, read it as the investigators say they found. That distinction matters.
Before we dive into what the police has unveiled and what the internet has unearthed in the process, right? Because we have our sort of detectives on the internet that have done a lot of digging.
Correct.
Two things I want to just ask or sort of clarify. One is that, do we know if the father, when in the beginning he was suspecting foul play, did he have an inkling that the foul play would be from his to-be daughter-in-law?
I think he did, yeah.
He did.
And we'll come to the reasons for that. Everything that was weird about them being in Lohagad at all that day. And the small incidents that had added up to that point. He hasn't come forward to explicitly state that, but I'm making that inference based on everything that Ketan's family found odd.
The other thing is, and perhaps this is clarification more for our international listeners, is that this is your quintessential arranged marriage, uniquely Indian phenomena, but it's an arranged marriage in the year 2026. And so it's this old tradition of matching groom and bride is happening in the context of 2026 and Shaadi.com and Hinge and Tinder. And we see what happens in modern arranged marriages is that there is an attempt to organically administer romance and chemistry in the couple in what is known as the courtship period or the engagement period. And this couple in Pune on that cliff found themselves in that period of romance.
Exactly.
Where they're posting stuff about how they love each other as if, it's a long-term girlfriend-boyfriend relationship, but it's not. It's an arranged marriage with a courtship period where there is hopes, fingers crossed, love somehow comes up.
Absolutely. And they are in that engagement period. They're not yet married. So this is the time that... And it almost seems like it's not just parents trying to do this by saying, okay, this is your courtship period, go out. They're themselves trying to feel it, right? He's trying to be this cutesy version for her. From everything she's posting, it's looking like she's trying as well. They're going on these trips together. All of this is in an artificial sense. Artificial being a really... I don't think that's the right word to describe what's happening. But everyone's trying to sort of induce those feelings into the situation. And I think a lot of times it ends up happening. And people
a lot of times
really
it ends up happening.
Yeah. But coming back to Vishal pushing for a deeper investigation, for more resources, for more assistance. You see, there's a particular difficulty in what Vishal was asking for. Once a death is filed as an accident, the whole bureaucratic weight of the system settles on top of that conclusion. Reopening it means asking tired officers to unbelieve something they've already written down, to go back to a closed file and treat a grieving fiancé as a suspect. That does not happen on a hunch. It happened here, though, by the accounts, because the father's objections were not vague. It was that specific insistence of someone who knew exactly how his son moved on a hill. And so a complaint of his eventually became the basis for the case being reopened as something other than an accident. The matter sat with the Lonavala Rural Police, and the broader investigation came under the Pune Rural setup, with the Superintendent of Police, Sandeep Singh Gill, heading it. Now, even after the reopening, the case could have settled down and died and ultimately been labelled a tragic accident a father was refusing to accept. But something else happened here instead. This case didn't die because when the police went looking a second time, this time with deeper suspicion, they actually found something. The police began by pulling call records and location data. They looked at financial disputes and property angles. They looked hard at the relationships in the boy's life. Who was close to him? Who stood to gain? Who had been near him at the end? They took Siya back to Lohagad Fort for a crime scene reconstruction, and a forensic team visited too. And they pulled CCTV from the fort. And that's where they saw it. On that footage, on a hill in the middle of June, was a man who made no sense. He was wearing a hoodie, head covered, headphones on, shorts. He moved around the fort and he turned up on the cameras near the spot where Ketan went over. None of that on its own is a crime. Plenty of people dress badly on a trek. But one of the officers set the thing that turns a shape on a screen into a suspect. They checked the temperature that morning. It was 33 degrees. And the question the officer asked is the question that broke this case open. Why would anybody wear a hoodie in that heat, with the head covered, in headphones on a morning like that? You wear a hood and you turn your face away from cameras when you do not want to be on them. That single, almost mundane observation, a man overdressed for the weather, is the loose thread the whole accident narrative was hanging on, and now the investigators had pulled on it.
Being overdressed while committing a crime is the equivalent of looking behind your back while pickpocketing or while stealing something.
Yes,
Like, it's
100%.
you're making, you think you're helping yourself, but chor ki dadi mein tinka, murder ki dadi pe headscarf. Like, that's how I would
Murder
view it.
ke sar pe hoodie.
Hoodie. Aishwarya, CCTVs and hill stations, CCTVs in general, the without them, I don't know how the police, we talk about DNA technology, we talk about forensic this, forensic that. The CCTV doesn't get enough credit. Like CP
Oh,
Plus should
yeah.
almost be a sponsor of our podcast for how many times it's ended up being a savior. Because I remember in the Mathiran case, the same thing happened. The couple were caught at the by the CCTV at the entry point. And in this case, again, like the CCTV finding some kind of anomaly. It's one of those things that is the unsung hero of
100%.
the police force.
And it's unsung because it's so important. I think it's just become so ubiquitous in these crime stories. CCTV is to crime scenes what water is to the body. Every now and then you'll meet someone and be like, what's your favorite beverage? And this random ass person will say water. And you'll be like, you know what? I actually agree.
Such a
CCTV
good
is that.
point. Yeah, we need a water brand sponsor and CP Plus
And
to
a
sponsor
CCTV.
Desi Crime.
But then the investigators said something that shook everyone. The man in the hoodie was not a stranger who happened to be on the fort. His name was Chetan Chaudhary. He was 22 from the Kondwa area of Pune. And like Ketan and Siya, he came from a business family too. This is one of the quiet, uncomfortable threads of this whole case. There's no poor, desperate outsider anywhere in this story. Everyone in it had options. Everyone in it had money. Everyone had avenues, a different path, a different choice to make. And Chetan, according to police, was no poor bystander either. He was Siya's boyfriend. The two of them, by the account given at the press conference, had met at work, but the newer police version is different. They say the two first met at a Diwali party last year and grew close from there. Wherever they met though, the thing the police is staying on is that the two had been involved for a while, something that both Siya and Chetan have now come forward to accept. How long exactly is one of the details reporting can't agree on. Some coverage says around a year, while the police, leaning on phone records, talk about roughly 6 months of near constant contact. What is harder to wave away is the volume of that contact. Police say that over those months, the two of them exchanged something like 2,004 phone calls and spent around 238 hours on the line with each other. Some calls running 2 to 3 hours at a stretch. 2,000 calls. That's not a fling. That's a second life being lived in the margins of an engagement to someone else. It's worth pointing out that one outlet says Chetan was someone Siya had met essentially the day before the killing. That is wrong. It comes from a cafe meeting we're going to get into later, not from when the two actually first met. We know for sure the two had known each other. They had been talking for months now. So now when you rewatch some of the clips and posts, in the back is the fact that all of this was posted by a young woman who the police allege was at the time in a year-long relationship with someone else, who had come to see her fiancé not as a partner, but as an obstacle to Chetan, something standing in the way. On the 17th of June, the day before Ketan died, CCTV places Siya and Chetan together at a cafe in Pune. The police allegation is blunt. This is where the final plan was set. They say the two of them sat there and worked it through, and that Siya had even suggested the fort beforehand, pulling up videos of Lohagad on YouTube to understand the terrain and the drops, briefing Chetan on the ground they would be using. Police have gone further. They say that at this meeting, the two of them settled on a specific spot on the fort from which Ketan could be pushed. A coffee date in the police telling that was actually a site survey. I find the YouTube detail particularly hard because if it's true, it's such a normal moment. We've all sat in a cafe. We've all pulled up a video of a place we're planning to visit, a trek, a viewpoint, a restaurant. The act is so familiar that it's almost invisible. To do it as research for where exactly a person's footing runs out, to scout a murder that way, the rest of us plan a hike trip, is haunting. Then the police also discovered that Chetan left his own phone that day, the day of the murder, at a shop and took an employee's phone instead before heading up to Lohagad, allegedly to avoid location tracking. One report says there was no internet activity on his phone for nearly 10 hours from about 7 a.m. to 5:40 p.m. on the day of the murder. This is circumstantial evidence, but damning to me nonetheless. Leaving your phone at a shop and for it to show absolutely no activity for 10 hours isn't normal in the day and age we live. Based on all of this, the call records, the location data, and what the police describe as the two of them admitting to it under sustained questioning, Siya Goyal and Chetan Chaudhary were arrested. They were booked under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, Section 103, which is murder, and Section 61, which is criminal conspiracy. There's a minor inconsistency in the reporting about the exact sequence of the arrests. One account has them both taken on the same day. Another, attributed to Ketan's father, has Chetan picked up one night and Siya the next morning. The substance is the same. By the time country had a name for this case, both of them were in custody. But an arrest is the end of an investigation, not the end of the horror. Because once the police started pulling on these threads more, what came apart was not a single moment of madness on a hilltop. It was a plan, a patient, repeated, rehearsed plan. Turns out the 18th of June was not the first time Siya had brought Ketan to the edge. The thing that will keep you up about this case is not that it happened. People kill people they're supposed to love. That is unfortunately the oldest story we cover on this show. The thing that will keep you up is how many times, according to the police, she tried and how she behaved in the gaps between the trying. The smiling, the flowers, the captions, all of it allegedly running at the same time as the planning. It may have started, in a sense, with a passport. You see, before the wedding, the couple were meant to fly to Bali for a pre-wedding photo shoot, the now obligatory ritual of the big Indian wedding, the glossy shoot in a beautiful place. According to police, Siya did not want that trip to happen, and she made sure it did not. The account that has firmed up since is fairly specific. On the 6th of June, on the way to the Mumbai airport, the group stopped at a food mall in Khalapur, and there, police say, Siya took Ketan's passport from the car and got rid of it, dumping it in the women's washroom. Earlier reporting had vaguely said she left it at a hotel. The later, more detailed version is the washroom at this mall. And investigators have said they may send a team back to try and retrieve it. No passport though, no Bali, and no shoot.
जाते समय 4 लोग एक साथ जा रहे थे, सिर्फ केतन का ही पासपोर्ट चोरी हो गया। रिटर्न आने के बाद हमें ये समझ में नहीं आया कि एक ही बैग में जब सब चीजें रखी हुई थी, बाकी सब करेंसी, क्रेडिट कार्ड्स, बाकी के पासपोर्ट अवेलेबल हैं और एक ही पासपोर्ट कैसे चोरी हो सकता है?
To everyone around them, it would have read as bad luck, a careless slip before a wedding, one of so many that might end up happening in a time of so much activity and chaos and prep. In the police account, it was sabotage, because after the lost passport, people say, Siya turned the disappointment into a trap. She suggested that since Bali had fallen through, the two of them should go and explore Lohagad Fort instead. A consolation outing, a romantic little trek to make up for the trip that they had lost. From there, the timeline gets dense, and I'll be straight with you that the exact count of visits and dates is one of the murkier parts of public record. But the police account, stitched together, runs roughly like this. On the 31st of May, Siya and Ketan went up to the fort. This is the trek on which the plan crystallized in her mind. She understood that if a man went off the edge of Lohagad, it would look exactly like what it's later made out to look like, an accident. She is then said to have settled the plan with Chetan. Then she tried to get Ketan back there. Around the 4th of June, she pushed for another visit. But this one did not happen, because of all people, Ketan's own family told him not to go. They couldn't understand this repeated need to head to Lohagad after the couple had just been there. Between then and the middle of the next month, police said she made repeated attempts to lure him back up the hill. Clearly, if all of this is true, this wasn't one fevered moment, but a campaign. Again and again and again, find a reason to get him to the edge. On the 14th of June, she succeeded in getting him up there again. And that is when she pushed him. But he did not go over. Something stopped his fall. Most reporting says a tree. His father described it as a bush, and I can't tell you with certainty which it was, only that right as he almost fell, Ketan reached out and held something on the hillside and actually survived his first murder attempt. Then, in the second after he nearly died, Siya is said to have screamed that there was a snake. She said she had been trying to save him from it, and then she hugged him. Ketan, by every account, never understood what had just happened to him. He thought his fiancée had just pulled him back from a snake, and in that loving gesture, he almost fell but stopped his fall. He thought she had saved his life. He had no idea she had pushed him and would keep trying till the morning he couldn't stop.
I mean, this is just insane.
Yeah.
This
It
is.
is.
It requires a special kind of human being to not just gaslight. Gaslighting in general is a very unique byproduct of human consciousness. How we can hold two different realities simultaneously.
Right.
But gaslight to the zenith of gaslighting, which is murdering somebody and the plan getting foiled. So within a second, being the most loving individual there can be, which is the love of your life, and that she's sort of the fact that she can navigate between those two realities
Within seconds.
it is a special kind of sociopathic individual is capable of that.
Another thing about this that stays with me is that we hear these stories often of people who tried to take their lives but survived. And they come forward and say that moment where we did it, our life flashed in front of our eyes. That's the exact moment we realized we didn't want to, because everything fell into place.
Such a good point.
And we're so glad we survived. She had that moment.
That moment.
Where she saw it almost happen and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But she went and did it again.
Such a good point.
And that
yeah.
to me is so scary.
Yeah, because a crime of passion can often be like taking your own life. A crime of passion can also be one you can regret as soon as you've done it.
Correct.
We've seen so many of these cases. If these events happened as we've been told, there ain't no regret. This is pre-planned. This is completely
It's
premeditated.
cold-blooded, yeah. This detail to me is one of the saddest ones in this case, if you picture it from his side specifically. You almost die on a mountain. The woman you're going to marry screams, grabs you, holds you, and you walk back down that hill grateful. Grateful to her specifically for being fast and present and brave in possibly the scariest moment of your life. For 4 days, you carry that around. Maybe you tell people. Maybe you love her a little more for it. And the entire time, if the police account is right, the thing you survived was her. And the gratitude you're feeling is being aimed at the person who arranged the fall. There's a kind of sadness in a botched murder that a successful one does not have. The victim gets to live inside that lie, thanking the hand that pushed him. And then she got him to come back one more time. On the 18th of June, it was sold to him as her birthday plan. Her 21st was on the 19th. And the story was that she wanted to be up there on the fort once again to mark it. A midnight birthday at a beautiful spot with the boy she was supposed to marry. The police say Ketan did not want to go back. After the 14th, why on earth would he? But she pressed, and when she couldn't overcome his reluctance, she allegedly went over his head. She called his mother and made her tell him to take her. This time, Chetan went too, the man in the hoodie, following the couple up, turning up on the cameras near the edge. And this time, there was no tree, and no snake, and no hug. There was a 100-foot fall, and a phone call about the wind, and a 3-hour recovery of a body that did not need to be a body.
उस लोहगढ़ किले पे इन्होंने वो केतन अग्रवाल को धक्का दिया और वो नीचे गिरा और उसकी मृत्यु हो गई.
Here is where a clean true crime episode would give you the confession, tie the bow and send you off. This case doesn't have that, and I'm not going to pretend it does, because the two people who actually know what happened on that hill are now telling two very different stories. And each of them is pointing at the other, with both of them now in police custody until 29th of June.
2026 कलम 103 BNS और 61(2) के अंतर्गत मर्डर का गुना हमने दाखिल किया है और इन दोनों को ताबे में लिया है.
But it's now confirmed that both of them aren't the only people arrested in this case. On June 25th, the authorities have officially arrested a third accomplice named Neeraj and confirmed that Ketan, Siya and Chetan weren't the only 3 people in Lohagad in and around the murder. This means more statements and possibly more confessions are yet to come. But for right now, we only have Siya and Chetan's accounts, and they've both turned on each other.
It's insane that you kill one person to be with your love, and when caught, You throw the love under the bus as well. I mean,
Right.
this is a story as old as time, but it baffles me every time it repeats.
I agree.
If you guys love each other so much, at least stand, at least maintain a common alibi. That's
Yeah.
one thing. I was reading from, again, the DMs that have been sent. So a friend of mine has been pestering me with literally every update. And you might have covered this, but in the most latest thing that has come out from the police, the Pune Mirror covered it, is that one of her reasons for not wanting to be with her arranged husband is because apparently he was balding and wore a wig. And so she really didn't want to go ahead and marry him. This has come out in a statement that the Pune Mirror put out.
My
I don't know how
God.
true it is. But again, it's all just feeding into this persona of somebody that is cray cray. Like
Yeah,
this is
this is absurd.
crazy.
But all of these online versions aside, we do have the versions of the two people sitting in police custody. According to the police, Chetan's version is that he never wanted anyone dead. He says he wanted to start a new life with Siya, to elope, to simply leave, and that it was she who insisted that Ketan had to be eliminated, that running away was not enough. In his telling, he is the boyfriend who would have settled for a bus ticket out of town, and she is the one who needed the edge of a cliff. Sia's version, also via the police, is a mirror image. She says the conspiracy was Chetan's, that he conceived it. She even told the police that after the failed attempt on the 14th, Chetan cried. Cried because Ketan was still alive. And now one new report by the police claims that Siya actually gave Chetan a signal by sitting down, after which Chetan allegedly came forward and he was the one who pushed Ketan into the gorge. With so much conflicting information, none of us can adjudicate between them and we shouldn't even try. Two accused blaming each other the moment the cell door closes is the single most predictable thing in any conspiracy case. It's frankly what you would expect, whether one of them is lying or both of them are. What it tells us is not who is guiltier. It tells us that whatever bond these two together had, it did not survive contact with consequences. And that the version of events a court eventually settles on may not match either story they're telling now. And the gap between their stories is not just gossip, that is the whole legal ball game. Who said the word kill first? Whose hand actually sent Ketan over? Whether one of them was driving and the other was carried along? Those questions are the difference between two people equally condemned and two people facing very different futures together for the same plan. And it's not just the two of them talking now. As the case has gone national, the families have started speaking too, and they're saying very different things. Chetan's side has come out swinging in his defense. A relative of his told reporters that as far as they know, Chetan is completely innocent and had nothing to do with any of this, and claimed they'd never even heard of the name Siya until her name turned up in the news. Quote, Chetan told me that he was staying away from them at the fort. He's being framed by the so-called wealthy people. Siya and Chetan were good friends, and to save herself, she implicated my son. We have never seen the girl in question and know absolutely nothing about her. In fact, I only found out her name, Siya, yesterday. I have never seen her before, said Chetan's father Babulal. On the other hand, Siya admits she was in love with Chetan. Quote, I love Chetan and I don't want this marriage. I had already made this very clear to Ketan, but he just wasn't ready to call off the wedding. He told me, I cannot call off the marriage now. My family is so wealthy that no matter where you run away, they will track you down. But since then, Sia's mother and father have now both said the opposite, in a move very different than what parents of accused usually do. They have come forward to say that they had no knowledge of any relationship between Siya and Chetan, had never met or spoken to him, and never sensed their daughter was unhappy about the wedding. So the whole "the family knew and pushed me regardless" point is genuinely contested now. Maybe both of these versions are true. Maybe a person can perform a relationship online while privately dreading the marriage. But you cannot read that public feed, that 1 month since my heart found its home, next to a secret relationship conducted over 2,000 phone calls and a campaign of attempts on the same man's life, and not feel the floor tilt. Either the grief was a costume or the romance was. They cannot both have been real.
I think, you know what? They're both kind of real. Part of me suspects this to be, and again, the police is conducting its investigation. This is all alleged. But this girl comes off to me, at least, from whatever little we know, as a sociopath.
And
one
completely
thing
delusional.
delusional. And so one aspect of that is you are not posting about your relationship as a guy's or as or because you're lovey-dovey. I don't think she loves him, and I don't think this is a
Of course
guy's.
not.
I think this is social validation. Like this is almost like a giving your wedding to a creative ad agency that ends up shooting all this content, and your feed is just rummaged with 3 months of pre-wedding, wedding, and post-wedding stuff. Again, feel free to do that. I just find all this performative, and I find relationships very sacred to be posting them so wildly. But all
Right.
that said, I think she's getting that social validation from posting about her wedding and
And
her
then posting
partner.
about the loss as well. That is also a
Exactly.
form of validation, right?
Exactly. I think these are all byproducts. The byproducts of all of these things are that it is a sort of decent alibi or cover up of some kind. But I don't think that's her driving motive. I think the driving motive of this girl is just, oh my God, people are going to like my story. Oh my God, people are going to love. I think
Oh my
that's
God,
where
your annoying girl voice is
her,
actually really annoying.
yeah, I think that I don't know if that's the Pune accent of a rich Pune
Probably
business
not.
family girl, but like, yeah, that's yeah. But I think this is what's happening here, because this is this is a special brain, I would say, a
Yeah.
special kind of sociopath.
I agree. But it's what Sia's parents said after all of this, the line that every outlet has run with. Both of them separately said that if their daughter is found guilty, she should get the harshest possible punishment. In their words, that she should be thrown from the same fort that Ketan was if she did it. It's a startling thing for a parent to say, and you can read it as raw honesty, or as a family desperate to distance itself, or as both. But then Sia's mother has also offered information that helps Sia's case. She claims that on the video call the night before the death, where Ketan's mother joined the call too, Siya actually said she didn't want to go to Lohagad.
वीडियो कॉलिंग में उसकी मम्मी बीच में आई हैं, तो सिया ने बोला कि मम्मी जी, केतन जी कल बोल रहे हैं कि अपने को ट्रैकिंग के लिए जाना है, तो आप उन्हें मना करो, मुझे ट्रैकिंग नहीं जाना है और अगले दिन फंक्शन भी है तो आराम करेंगे.
Now, this new piece of information sits awkwardly next to the police line that Siya pushed for the trip and got Ketan's mother to talk him into it. And then perhaps there is the eeriest detail of all, the one that went most viral, because of course it did. In the days after Ketan's death, while it was still officially an accident, while she was still the grieving fiancée, Siya posted. She put up stories with pictures and videos of him, mourning him. The kind of post that in June the entire country would later screenshot. Quote, "You left me on my birthday. You left me when we were so close to getting married. I still can't understand why you did this to me. I had dreams. Why did you leave me when I loved you so much? Rest in peace." End quote. These posts now sit against what she's telling the police, that she was in love with Chetan, that she never wanted to marry Ketan, that she was never in love with him at all. Now, we usually end these by telling you where the case goes next. I cannot because it's barely started going anywhere. As I write this, the investigation is open. The police have said they're still working to establish the exact sequence of who did what on that hill, still chasing forensic evidence, still asking whether anyone else was part of the conspiracy. They have not closed the door on a property dispute or some other motive sitting underneath the love triangle one. In the Maharashtra Assembly, Presiding Officer Raju Khare directed the state government to constitute a special investigation team. But a lot still remains to be proven. So instead of an ending, let me give you this. We will keep watching this case as it moves through the courts, and we will come back to it when there's something real to come back to, when the accounts have been tested, when the conflicting stories have been forced to choose. Until then, hold on to all of this loosely. An arrest is not a verdict, and a police briefing is not a trial.
And we have seen enough instances of media trial by media, which in turn inflicts harm on the investigation by the police.
Which is for the victim, so it harms the victim.
Exactly. So just keep that in mind while sort of seeing all the Chinese whispers about this case come up on social media, usually unverified. Part of us, felt compelled to cover this case, not just because it's emblematic of something of a trend of crime we've been seeing, or at least hearing about, but also because the criminal is very convoluted and delusional, And there is a lot of fake news out there, so it's worth
Correct.
clarifying all the credible stuff that we could find. As of today, the family of the victim has met the Chief Minister Fadnavis, and Fadnavis has sort of apprised them on the investigation, where it's at. So, of course, it's reached the top echelons of Maharashtrian politics. And it's only set to grow as more details come out. So just,
Right.
The Desi Crime listener is, a smart listener, and we just want you to be sort of on the lookout for not being swayed by fake news or feeding into it.
And I want to leave you all with the fact that while you watch other people's lives play out on your phone and your TV screens, look around and take care of the people you love, whose lives you intimately watch and know. And if something seems odd, like a trip being pushed too many times, an almost accident that doesn't quite make sense, a relationship with an odd dynamic that you can't get yourself to fully accept, speak up. Raise your concerns. It is always, always cheaper than the alternative. If you like what we do here at Desi Studios and absolutely love what we're wearing today, this is merch you can go buy all for yourself.
You can buy this Desi Crime merch in our YouTube store on the link down below at Kadak Merch. Keep the engines at Desi Studios rolling so we can pay our videographer right behind the camera to make these amazing episodes just for you.